This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we have watched as Donald Trump has taken action against all of these law firms whose political ideology doesn't comport with his. And we've kind of waited to see the point at which he would target you specifically. I feel like he's been dancing around you for a long time. That moment has finally come within the last 24 hours where he did target you specifically. Can you explain what he did?
Yeah. So look, we have been waiting, as you say, for Donald Trump to continue his political retribution activities. We talked on a prior video about how he singled me out in a Department of Justice speech, called me a bad person, said that I was in favor of communism. What we have this week is a memorandum from the White House to the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, the Department of Homeland Security, that basically begins by saying, again, what a terrible human being I am, and then tells the Department of Justice to instruct its lawyers to look out for and to find frivolous legal filings by law firms such as my own, but others as well, and to be aggressive in pursuing sanctions in those instances, also to presumably file bar complaints. And the kicker is, Brian, that even if a judge doesn't find something frivolous, even if a bar doesn't find something frivolous, if there's something that Pam Bondi thinks is really frivolous, they should call it to the attention of the White House, because the White House might be able to impose its own sanctions on law firms.
What does that even mean in practice? What can the White House do to impose sanctions on a private law firm that doesn't even have business in front of the federal government?
Well, but this is the thing, right? Like, what we have been watching for weeks now is Donald Trump trying to impose unilateral sanctions from the White House on law firms like the prior firm I was at, law firms like Covington and Burling, law firms like Paul Weiss, which, has now disgraced itself by settling with the Trump administration. And those involved the removal of security clearances and the banning of government contracts, also entering government buildings and the like. Things that are totally unconstitutional that courts have now blocked in the case of the one law firm that went to court over it. Donald Trump is doing this because he wants to project power and instill fear on the recipients. So you're quite right. Like, where does he get off doing this, and really what's the practical impact, particularly if these actions are later found to be illegal by federal judges? But from Donald Trump's standpoint, he has still made a point, right? He is still able to intimidate a lot of lawyers and a lot of law firms to not cross him. So what he's hoping in this latest memorandum that targets me and the bar as a whole is that we will all back down. We'll all think twice about filing a lawsuit. We'll all think twice about taking on a client. I mean, I can tell him, for my part, it's not going to work. I already issued a statement saying we will never negotiate with the White House. We will never seek to find common agreement with them. I mean, I wouldn't expect a firefighter to try to negotiate with an arsonist. And for my part, I will never, and my law firm will never seek accommodation with Donald Trump and his White House. But there are law firms that will, and we've seen that happen, and it is a shame that it's happening. But that's why he's going after me, because he is hoping to try to score some points, and maybe even if I don't back down, others do.
Mark, I'm going to put your statement right here on the screen. This is pulled from your website. President Trump is attempting to dismantle the Constitution and attack the rule of law in his obsessive pursuit of retribution against his political opponents. Today's White House memo targets not only me and my law firm, but every attorney and law firm who dares to challenge his assault on the rule of law. President Trump's goal is clear. He wants lawyers and law firms to capitulate and cower until there's no one left to oppose his administration in court. Elias Law Group will not be deterred from fighting for democracy in court. There will be no negotiation with this White House about the clients we represent or the lawsuits we bring on their behalf. Our democracy is in peril, and the decisions made by lawyers and their firms may very well determine the future of the rule of law in the United States. So, Mark, what was the process that you and your law firm thought through in terms of putting this response forward? Because this very much is not what we're seeing from the suite of other law firms that are engaged in similar attacks against this White House.
Yeah, so for us, it was really simple. For me, it was really simple. I had laid down a marker, months ago. You and I talked about this first in the context of legacy media and the refusal of legacy media to stand up to Donald Trump, to stand up for independent media. And we talked about the need for people to support independent media, like what you do, like what Democracy Docket does. We then talked about how billionaires were flying their private jets to Mar-a-Lago and were bending a knee, and how we really needed the business community to stand up, and they didn't. And then we saw big law firms do the same. So when this came out and I learned about it, there was no hesitation. I knew what we were going to do. You and I had talked about what we all needed to do, which was to make it very, very clear from the first moment, the first instance in which Donald Trump thought there would be intimidation, that there was no possibility that there would be a bowing down. There was no possibility that there would be a negotiation. I wanted it to be crystal clear before anyone read anything or had a moment thought that we were never, ever going to yield to what Donald Trump's doing. But unfortunately, what we're seeing big law do, which is what, frankly, we saw big media do, big corporate America do, is they're weighing. They're like, well, what are others doing? What are the upsides? What are the downsides? And that is what is destroying democracy. If our business leaders won't stand up, if our major media institutions won't stand up, if our major law firms won't stand up, then how the hell can you expect average Americans, everyday Americans, to do their part? So for me, it was never a choice.
I want to take this opportunity then for those who are watching right now, if you want to support the invaluable work that Mark is doing, especially as it relates to not cowing to this administration and to pursuing fearless journalism in a way that we're not seeing from legacy media, please sign up for Democracy Docket. That is a small step that we can all take to show some support for the courage that Mark and his team are showing in the face of such adversity. So I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Mark, can I ask about the feedback that you're receiving? Because this stands in stark contrast to some of the capitulation that we're seeing from these other big law firms. And we're going to talk about that in an entirely separate video, because I think that it's worthy of a video unto itself to really dig into the details of that. But again, we are seeing a lot of capitulation as it relates to big law, and yet you opted not to, and you did it immediately. And so what has that feedback been like?
Right. So look, this is why I wanted to be on with you as soon as we could after this. And thank you for the opportunity. The feedback's been positive. The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. I've gotten outreach from clients. I've gotten outreach from progressive organizations. I've gotten outreach from individual lawyers, people I've never met, who are saying, thank you for doing this. Thank you for not backing down. Thank you for not, bending a knee. Thank you for not just not backing down, but for speaking out, right? Because I didn't want there to be a period of time in which I was quiet and people thought, well, maybe he's not going to back down, but he's not going to speak out. And I thought it was really important to speak out. And there's no place I wanted to do it more than to your audience, who have been so supportive of the rule of law and so supportive of democracy. And this entire series that you and I have done have been about engaging your community in the fight for democracy in court, and this is a part of it. So I've been overwhelmed by the positive feedback I've gotten, but I also know that it's going to be a tough road ahead, right? We are only 3 months into this administration, and this is already what he is doing. Just imagine how much worse this is going to be, in 6 months or in 3 years when we are still dealing with this. But we're going to take it day by day, and we're not going to give up the fight.
Can you speak about the broader theme of fight versus capitulation? Because I feel like that's so much of what the political moment on the left has been boiled down to right now. And usually, look, we're a big tent party. We've got everybody from AOC and Bernie Sanders to Joe Manchin and Jared Golden all in the same political party here. So it's not an easy, it's like herding cats on the left. But I do feel like this moment is not necessarily about the moderate versus progressive like it usually is. That usually feels like it's tearing the party in half. Right now, this feels like more of a moment of fighting versus capitulating, or fighting versus flight, really. And so can you talk about your decision to immediately and unequivocally come back in the broader context of really the what we're seeing right now seems to be the most important thing for the Democratic base, which is that we need some folks in there that are willing to show some spine and willing to stand up to an administration that has shown no qualms about using every lever at their disposal, legal or not, to go after their perceived enemies.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can speak for myself and I can speak for the legal community that I operate in. And for me, there's no choice. I understand that not every law firm is going to be in the position that I am in. And I understand that different politicians are going to be in different places. You know, they all play different roles. I think though that it is important that we understand that Donald Trump is not playing by the rules that that we expect of them. You know, I
Yeah.
remember back and you and I talked about this actually at the time. Merrick Garland was a very decent man, is a very decent man. Joe Biden, no doubt, appointed him for all the right reasons. But time and time again, when Merrick Garland had the power, the opportunity to use the Department of Justice power to protect democracy or to follow norms, he decided that following norms was more important.
Yeah.
Down to his last speech. I mean, you and I talked about literally his last speech was a celebration of norms. It was a celebration of how he thought the Department of Justice under Joe Biden had been a success because it had reinforced norms. Well, here we are, you know, it's now March. You're talking to a lawyer who has been the subject of a speech at the Department of Justice by the President of the United States, calling me out and calling me a bad person and a communist. Now these executive orders, this memorandum targeting me and my law firm, executive orders targeting other law firms. So to me, you know, when I look at this, it is not that we can break the law because you know we have to be a party of the rule of law. We have to follow the law. But it is that it is if we talk about what the norms are, it is very abnormal for a lawyer like me to be on a show like yours, calling out a law firm like Paul Weiss and saying that it is despicable what they did. It is very unusual for someone like you, or for that matter, like me, to call out legacy media outlets by name, the Washington Post, right? Like nobody likes to do that, but we have to be willing to do that. And so that is the choice I've made. And I think that as lawyers who have a unique opportunity and a unique responsibility, it is something we need to do, and it is something not enough of the legal establishment is doing.
Well, let's finish off with this. You were the target of Trump's ire today, and also a few days ago when he was speaking to the DOJ. But this most recent
And
memorandum was.
question why he was at the Department of Justice.
Say again?
And of course, why is he at the Department of Justice?
Which is a total other issue unto
I mean, like
itself.
Barack Obama went to the Department of Justice once for
Right.
Eric Holder's going away, and the Republicans lost their mind.
Right. I mean, Republicans will still talk about Bill Clinton meeting Loretta Lynch on the tarmac, and yet now Pam Bondi is like having dinner on a bi-nightly basis with Donald Trump and his campaign staff. But all of that notwithstanding, you were the most recent target of Trump's ire, and we know that after you, another law firm, another entity, another company, another business CEO, whatever it may be, is going to be the subject next. And so what's your message to those who come after you, who are going to be faced with the difficult position of, okay, do I capitulate because it might be more beneficial for the bottom line, or it might just make things easier for me altogether, even though doing so chips away at our ability to organize together against him? You know, like, can you speak on that one, what you would say to the next folks who get in the crosshairs of Trump?
Yeah, I'd say two things. The first is that even if you wanted to capitulate for business reasons, it won't work because Donald Trump doesn't make a deal that he keeps. You
Yeah.
know, one of the things about Donald Trump is once you show weakness to him, he owns you. He doesn't make a deal with you on equal terms. That afterwards you shake hands and then you're on equal
I
footing.
mean, take the Public Integrity Unit when he said, okay, let's find me a lawyer that's willing to sign off on this dismissal of Eric Adams' case. They finally found a lawyer who was willing to do that, and then and that person did so under the pretense that, okay, I'm gonna jump on the grenade and we'll protect the Public Integrity Unit at the DOJ. 5 minutes later, the entire Public Integrity Unit is disbanded anyway.
Right. So the first thing I'd say is it doesn't work. But the second thing is I'd ask you, do you have no dignity? I mean, do you have
Yeah.
no self-respect when you are retired and your grandchildren are looking at you? Don't you think they will look at you and ask what you did? And are you going to tell them what you did is you caved to Donald Trump when Donald Trump was trying to destroy democracy, when Donald Trump was intimidating you, that what you did is you gave in to what was wrong because of money? Is that really what you want to be remembered for?
Yeah.
Look, here's the thing. Donald Trump is a very powerful man. And, you know, I make fun of him. You make fun of him because he's kind of a buffoonish character. But he's the president of the United States. And anyone who thinks that I don't take seriously the threat that he is doesn't understand what I'm saying. I worry every single day. It is not that I am without worry. It is not that I just shrug all this off. I understand that Donald Trump wants to ruin me, and he has a lot of tools to be able to ruin me. But the question is, am I going to look myself in the mirror and say, okay, therefore compromise everything I believe in, compromise everything I've fought my career for, and just hide or cower or even worse, make a deal with him? Or am I at least going to look in the mirror every day and stand tall and say, you know what? I have my integrity. I have my self-respect. And if Donald Trump's able to destroy me, then he destroys me. But at least he will have taken out someone who to the bitter end was doing the best he could to fight for democracy in this country. And so that's my message to these CEOs or these media leaders or to these law firm chairmen is have some self-respect.
Perfectly put.